So today, to kick off the new year 2023, I thought we'd take a look and try and predict what will happen with Valorant in the new year, what we'll be saying about Valorant this time next year when we look back at what happened in the year 2023. But just very quickly before we get into it, today is the final day to sign up for the Gosu Academy Valorant Bootcamp because it starts tomorrow. So this is your final chance to sign up if you want to get better at Valorant to start the new year. Many of you will have heard this before, but I do think that this is the best way to get better at Valorant pretty quickly because you are combining the theoretical side of learning from tier 1 coaches and what they think about the game and myself with the practical side as well when you play in these 10-man sessions and get VOD reviews and, play against people of a similar skill level who are also motivated to get better. I think that combination of the theoretical side with the practical side is the best way at getting better at Valorant. And you have a money back guarantee, no questions asked. If in the first 3 days you realize that it's just not for you, then don't worry about it whatsoever. All the VODs are recorded as well, so if you can't make a certain day, then don't worry about that either. And I do think that this is a great way of getting better at Valorant. So go into the link in the description or in the pinned comment because this is your final chance to sign up for the bootcamp today. And let's start with something that we know is going to be in the game, or at least very much should be, unless something really goes wrong, and that is Valorant's Premier Mode. Now, they mentioned this, this is all the way back in October, about the alpha test that they wanted to do. I assume that this is going to come out, sometime, probably soon this year. The Premier Mode, if you don't know what that is, it's basically like a more competitive type mode where you play in like a big 5-stack and you play for like tournaments, and it's kind of more a more serious thing, and then it's even being integrated into the actual kind of professional level as well. Like this is where your maybe tier 3 games will take place and whatnot in this kind of system. And so this is obviously going to be a very interesting development. I assume that this has been taking up, quite a bit of the time of the devs as well, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But this mode, what I think that this will ultimately do, this alpha mode, is probably bring up the level even more of the general player base, right? Because what you'll get with this mode, if it is even a small success, I think, is you will get a pool of players who really then care, about the meta, who really care about trying to find strats, right, and work together and be cohesive. And overall, that's going to make, maybe for the, immortal ranks plus, right, at least in those ranks, this kind of mode, I think, will improve the overall level of gameplay, at least at the very top, right? But even as we go down the ranks, that then will filter down as well, that the overall level should improve as people take this more seriously, right? As people think about map picks and bans, right? As they think about, what comps they want to play and what agents they really are good at, right? And taking things very seriously, or as seriously as they possibly can. I think that this mode, will add to that and really add to everything, getting better, the general level getting better in Valorant as a whole. And as I mentioned before, this probably, I would assume, is something that, was taking up quite a bit of the devs' time, right? This is a big project that they're working on. And so once this comes out and everything is working and it's working smoothly, then that means, of course, those devs will, probably be freed up to potentially work on something else, right? The next big thing that they want to add into the game. And so maybe that next big thing won't come out in the year 2023, but maybe we'll get news about its development, right? Be it a replay system, be it, new game modes, whatever it might be, right? That, once this kind of big project is kind of ticked and done, on to the next big project it will be, and obviously we'll have to see what that would be. I'd be interested in seeing, and thinking about what you guys think the next big project in Valorant would be. And then you've also got the map pool changes. Now, we know, obviously, the new map pool changes are coming in like a week or two or whatever, right? We're losing Bind and Breeze, and we are gaining Split and whatever the new map is. And, they want to keep this 7 map pool at all times in unrated and competitive queues. But that also not only extends to, this next map pool rotation, but in 6 months' time, there should be, another map as well. And a new map comes out every 6 months, or at least it has done, kind of historically. So assuming that that is the case again, we'll end up in a spot where again we'll have a new map, right? And one map will have to rotate. I have a feeling that that might be Icebox because it's about time that Icebox left. But then I think you have a very, very interesting decision when it comes to Bind and Breeze. Because of course Split came back, right? But will Bind and Breeze come back? Because if you bring back both Bind and Breeze, then that means that you have to get rid of 2 more maps. And if you start thinking about it, well, they're probably not getting rid of Pearl, right? Because it's very new. Okay, so we're basically down to 3 maps at that point. We're basically down to Fracture, which is still fairly new as well. And they did change it pretty recently. So maybe not even Fracture. And then you're left with Ascent and Haven. And if they got rid of Ascent and Haven for Bind and Breeze, I don't think that that would be a very popular decision. So I think in 6 months' time, the map rotation, whatever they choose to do with it, is going to be very, very, very interesting. And I'd love to hear some predictions about that, because it's going to be very interesting to see, would they dare rotate Haven and Ascent? Because they have been in the game for a very long time, but, you know, they're kind of fan favorite maps. So maybe they'll leave them in which case, what other maps are you going to get rid of? Are you even going to bring back Bind and Breeze at all, right? Do you bring back one and not the other? I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. If I had to guess, this is going to be my guess. I would guess that the new map would come in for Icebox, and that Bind would come back and Ascent will go, but they will leave Haven and keep Breeze out. That is going to be my guess for what happens in 6 months' time. And then finally, we also need to talk about esports, because of course, VCT is changing, right? We have the new Valorant Champions Tour with the 3 leagues that are going on. Of course, we get the first big tournament that's coming in as well for the first Sao Paulo tournament, but we have the new kind of structure, right, as a part of the ecosystem of Valorant now for professional play. And it's going to be very, very, very interesting, I think. This is kind of the first big year, I would say. You know, I think we've got a bit of momentum coming with Valorant esports at the moment. You know, I think Copenhagen, I thought, was a really, really good tournament. Champs was a successful tournament. I thought the Game Changers tournament as well was really, really good. And so there's a bit of momentum building for kind of Valorant esports. And then this is the year where it really needs to like go, okay, this is our future and it is good, right? This is kind of, I think, a very big year for Valorant esports as a whole, right? The lock-on tournament, I think will be interesting, right? The big Sao Paulo tournament with 30 teams. That's going to be very interesting, I think. It'll be very big, very new. You know, it's kind of... I'm glad that it's a one-off, because I think if we had one every year, it might get a bit exhausting, because it is going to be a very massive tournament that they're going to have to run there. So, you know, I'm kind of glad it is a bit more of a one-off. But then we'll get to see the normal structure as well for what, you know, a normal year will look like. And we'll see how it goes overall. But I think that this really is, you know, the time to really cement Valorant potentially as, you know, a very big esport. If things go really well and kind of the momentum keeps building with Valorant esports, you know, we could be looking at a very, very successful thing. But this year, I think, is absolutely massive to that, right? We have a very balanced esport at the moment in terms of region competitiveness. I feel like everyone kind of thinks that their region has an actual chance in this game, which is not the case for pretty much every other game in the world, which is just a great thing to have in Valorant's favor. You know, it's an interesting game to watch, I think, as well. So I think there are a lot of things going for Valorant here. And if, you know, it does work out as well as it potentially can do with the, you know, 3 different leagues, we could be looking at something very, very special indeed. And going forward from that as well, it's not just about, you know, the kind of structure of VCT, but also in-game as well about, you know, the kind of development of the game as, you know, people get better at the game at the very highest level, they start to work out different things, right? I still think there is a lot of questions when it comes to Valorant and the best way of playing Valorant, you know, whether it be to do with the economy, right? There's different economical strategies that are going about. I don't think the economy in Valorant has fully been solved. Should you force on the second round if you plant the spike as the attackers? You know, is it meta dependent? Do you need a gun like the Stinger to be good to make it worth it? Or, you know, should you be doing it all the time? Or should you never be doing it, right? I don't think anyone knows the answer to that question right now, but maybe in a year's time, you know, people will know the answer to that question. Or even things like maps as well. I think there's big developments to be made on certain maps. Take Fracture. Do you need to be aggressive on the defensive side on Fracture? Some people would say yes, some people would say no, and if you do need to be aggressive on Fracture, how aggressive do you need to be, right? Like, there is differences, I think, there as well. I think Pearl, what does Pearl look like in a chamber, you know, less chamber meta, right? I think chamber was a crutch that a lot of people were using, but now, you know, with a worse chamber, Will people be playing Jet on all of these maps? What about maps like Split and Fracture? Are you going to play Jet there, or are you going to have to opt with a different agent? You know, there's a lot of things that I think need to be solved. There's a lot of question marks right now that by the end of the year, maybe they've all been solved and we end up in a very kind of different space with Valorant kind of taking form and taking shape as, you know, what the game is ultimately, you know, the best way of playing Valorant is this, and we have more solid answers by the end of the year, because I do think there is still a lot of questions with Valorant and how to play Valorant at the highest level. So I'm very interested to see, you know, how that will develop. And so those were just some of my thoughts, but let me know what you thought in the comments down below. Do you wish that they would have kept Bind and Breeze and, you know, let go of Split and never bring it back? Do you think that Valorant will become the biggest esports in the entire world? Or do you think that nothing will change and everything will stay the same and the devs will just go on one big holiday? Let me know in the comments down below what you think, and I will see you next time.